In this video, you'll learn 3 steps to carry any lobby in Solo Shuffle, which I promise will work for every single class no matter what your rating. But first, we need to talk about dampening. If you watched our recent video, you already know that dampening changes the way you play. And to represent what dampening does in Solo Shuffle, I'm about to jump from one of the highest places in all of Azeroth, the Sword of Sargeras. My goal is to land in this swimming pool all the way across the continent. This will be a long journey that will take just over 2 minutes, which just happens to be the length of most Solo Shuffle games. To begin my journey, I'm going to start off with a big bang. And as I leave the sword behind, I'm reminded of the first step in every single Solo Shuffle, to start fast. Alright, by now you should know that within the first 10 seconds of combat starting, you should have already pressed your Swifty one-shot macro on the kill target, while hopefully having some sort of CC on the healer. This is PvP 101. Everyone knows that you need to generate momentum at the start of the game by using our offensives fast, because then, 2 minutes later, you're going to have your CDs back to do unhealable damage in deep dampening. Now, most players already know this, which is why we can do even better. So for extra credit, there are 3 things we can do in the early game to help us carry even more momentum. The first is to instantly swap on CDs. I know we've mentioned this a lot on this channel, but this is really effective. And just to be clear, not every defensive CD deserves a swap. Like, if a Warlock presses Dark Pact, you probably shouldn't care as a warrior since you can just blast through it anyway, or, I don't know, just wrecking throw it for 11 million damage. But any big percentage-based damage reductions like Astral Shift or immunities like Evasion, these are the type of cooldowns you probably won't kill through easily, at least in the early game when the enemy healer still has all of their healing cooldowns and when dampening isn't very high. And even better, most healers are probably going to commit their defensive to the first target you attack, and you can put them massively behind by just hitting someone else, including the healer. Healers just kind of suck when multiple targets are taking damage, and if they're ever in a situation where they have to burn extra cooldowns early, it puts our team insanely ahead on momentum. Swapping on defensive cooldowns can not only give you a trading advantage, but it means a bigger number on the scoreboard, which, let's be honest, is the only thing that really matters in PvP. I'm only partially joking, and not to brag or anything, but I'm super close right now to getting 2400 on my sub road. Now, I'm not the greatest DPS player, but swapping on defensives is probably the #1 thing that carries me the hardest when I'm not playing my healer. And when I'm playing my healer, the thing that makes me absolutely miserable is when the enemy team will just instantly swap on defensives and put 2 targets under pressure. Unfortunately, Blizzard just doesn't make it easy these days to see what's going on in Arena. For whatever reason, they just think we need more pets on our screen or something, which kind of sucks because we know that a lot of players struggle with tunnel vision. And this is why I personally think that our nameplate profiles are the #1 part of our UI package. Being able to isolate key information eliminates 90% of distractions instantly. It literally feels like a cheat code. Our goal at Skillcapped is to save you time, so instead of needing to add a bunch of filters manually, we've already done this for you if you're a subscriber. And we take the same approach with all of our courses on our website. Instead of needing to waste weeks or even months trying to learn PvP, we condense everything into bite-sized videos. In fact, when I'm learning a new spec, I will always watch our class guides to make sure I'm doing my rotation correctly. Skillcapped has even been very useful for me over the past few expansions, which is why we can offer a pretty generous rating gain guarantee. So if you're interested in signing up, be sure to use the discount link below. For now, let's get back to the video. Of course, the title of this video is the 3 steps to carry, and step 1 is pretty long because it's the most important, but let's check back on my journey flying across the continent. As you can see, we've kept up momentum so far and things are looking pretty good, but we need to keep going. Since the early game is so important for establishing momentum, we really need to focus on all the tiny details. Now I need to have a heart-to-heart with all the healers out there because there is a crucial mistake you might be making, especially in the early game. Alright, so by now you should know that you're forced to burn at least 1 healing cooldown in the opener no matter what. When I play Resto Druid, this is Tree Form, but almost every healer has one of these tempo cooldowns that you just throw away early just so you don't get overwhelmed. I call them tempo cooldowns because they're the only way to not instantly fall behind in the opener. But while all of this is happening, you really shouldn't be neglecting one button on your keyboard, and that's your Dispel, because you really need to be focusing on keeping your DPS free, especially in the early game. Seriously, one of the biggest mistakes you could be making as a healer is not pressing your Dispel fast enough, especially when your DPS are in their cooldown windows. And I really can't stress this enough, like every 1 second they spend in CC puts your entire team multiple seconds behind. I really like the analogy that playing a healer is kind of like walking a dog, but I also think it's kind of like being a Pokemon trainer. Your DPS are kind of like Pokemon that you send into battle to win the game for you. And one of the easiest ways to help them out is to just press your Dispel more often. You should get in the habit of glancing over at Omni CD to see when your partners are about to pop off. And when they are popping off, you just be instantly ready to react to any major Dispel CC the moment it appears on your frames. Obviously, you want to prioritize longer CCs like Polymorph, but don't forget about stuns and even roots if you're playing with melee. Alright, so we're still on step 1, and I know this might seem like a lot, but bear with me. The final way to get even more momentum early on is to abuse offensive dispels. Now, of course, I know not every class has a purge effect, but if you do, you should probably be pressing it more often. Right now, the 3 most popular classes in Solo Shuffle are Druid, Priest, and Paladin, which all get absolutely tormented by dispels. and even though they're not nearly as popular, both evokers and mages hate offensive dispels too, whether it's getting rid of nullifying shroud or removing those new overpowered barriers. Even if you remove minor buffs like arcane intellect or that dragon buff I can't even remember the name of, this is still super important because it will make it easier to get those high value purges later on. Anyway, now we are finally done with step 1. But if we check back on my mage, something bad is about to happen. The momentum I had from my jump has worn off and I still have a long journey ahead of me. This is kind of like the mid-game in solo shuffle, which can feel a bit awkward since both teams have run out of juice. So if we want to have our best chance going into deep dampening, we need to find some clever ways to get any remaining defensive cooldowns out of the way. So step 2 will be to try to keep momentum in any way we can, even without using our offensive cooldowns. I mentioned in the past that playing against good hunters is the scariest thing in the world as a healer. If they just land freezing traps every 30 seconds, it means that they can sometimes force me to use my trinket or other healing cooldowns in a really inefficient way, especially if there's any follow-up. This can then snowball out of control, causing my team to run out of CDs before we reach deep dampening. I'm telling you this because I get insanely frustrated whenever there's a hunter on my team who only traps like once or twice a game. It's like they're throwing away possible win conditions for no reason. Even if you don't play hunter, CC is super overpowered because it allows you to reliably force defensives off script, or sometimes it can straight up just win you the game without needing to use any offensive cooldown. This is why I cringe whenever someone says that CC doesn't matter, because I know for a fact that crowd control is super OP for keeping up momentum. And for even more extra credit, one thing I've been really focusing on, specifically as a healer in solo shuffle, is to chain off of my partner's CC. Now I realize it can be difficult to actually push in and land CC these days, especially since everyone plays like a gladiator even at 1800. It's like every rival rated priest has Hydra 7 loaded up in the background while they're just blasting Ultra Numb ready to death your blind like a rank 1 player. It's kind of ridiculous. Anyway, chaining off your partner CC is really safe and helps solve a lot of issues, especially as a healer. It's kind of like killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Number 1, since they're already in CC, it means they can't avoid you. And number 2, their team is probably under pressure, which makes them less likely to stop you. And of course, number 3, extending the CC chain just puts them further and further behind, which once again gives us a precious lead on momentum. Obviously, this is something you should be doing as a DPS for the exact same reasons. This is quote-unquote the correct way to play that you would normally be doing in 3v3, so you might as well try and do it more in solo shuffle, even if it's impossible to communicate. And while we're focusing on landing CC consistently on the healer in the mid game, we also need to do a better job as a team to prevent the enemy team from doing the same thing to us. If you can prevent just 1 CC from landing on your healer, you can perform a miracle for your team. I've been watching Mez play DK a lot lately, and one thing he is super good at is using AMS on his healer right before a trap lands. That's right, in case you didn't know, DKs can AMS their partners with a PvP talent. So if you play a spec with tons of utility like, I don't know, Ret Paladin, there's really no excuse for you to fail to sank your healer. I mean, are you really going to let a DK out utility you? No matter what, it's good to be super annoying in solo shuffle right now, and you shouldn't let your healer get CC'd for free. And that conveniently brings us to step 3 in how to solo carry, which is to be as annoying as possible. We started this video by talking about dampening, and since we're now at step 3, we need to come full circle. Since healing is much weaker during the endgame, your priorities need to change a lot. You can't just tank damage for free since your healer will literally not be able to keep you alive with healing alone. I know it sounds weird hearing that being annoying is one of the best things you can do in solo shuffle, but it's actually true. You need to do everything possible to stay alive while you wait for your 2-minute cooldowns to come back, which will allow you to close out the game. Now there's a few different ways to play insanely lame. Against melee, you should do something called weaning, which I know sounds super dumb, but just ignore that for now. Weaning just means keeping a slow applied and running around a pillar. Players like Bikmix are really good at weaning, and he'll do this a lot in the late game just to stall while he waits for his cooldowns or his trap to become ready again. Actually, the more that I think about it, weaning is kind of a stupid word because it just means using LOS, but most players don't really think about doing this specifically against melee. And on that note, the number 1 way to be annoying against any caster is also just to abuse pillars. Some specs like Destro Warlock can literally not kill you unless you're in the open for 4 seconds or more at a time. Again, the goal of playing lame and avoiding damage is to just stay alive long enough for your win condition to rotate back. And I should be clear that there are some very specific ways that you can be annoying against specific specs. For instance, it's really smart to abuse roots when playing against evokers of all things, because their limited range makes it super difficult to stay connected, and most players forget that roots are really good even when they're not used against melee. Anyway, let's check back on my mage, who, it seems like by a miracle, has finally made it to the finish line. I mean, look, the pool is literally right there. Am I gonna actually make it? But before we find out, if you want to learn some of these unique counters to every class, we have 3 courses right now on our website designed specifically to teach you how to counter every role. Being able to annoy your opponents honestly goes a long way, and you'll learn at least 3 different counters for every spec. Wait a second, did I just completely whiff the pool? I guess despite all my planning, just nothing is guaranteed. Well, almost nothing, because at SkillCap we offer a rank up guarantee where we promise you can gain at least 400 rating while using our site. If you learned something in this video, there's a lot more of it on our website, so be sure to use the discount link below in order to sign up. Anyway guys, I want to thank you all for watching. See you soon.